Hey guys, I'm back today with another product review. Today we've got the Weatherby 307 action. Weatherby sells rifles that are built on this action, and they also sell the actions, and this is their basically their answer to the Remington 700 clone market, which is something kind of surprising for a company like Weatherby that already has actions that are pretty well known, like the Mark V, and obviously they have the Vanguard / Howa 1500. I guess it's not entirely surprising. They seem to know what people want, and obviously the Remington 700 market is hot right now. Basically anybody who's anybody is shooting a 700 clone of some kind today. This is a budget action. The MSRP on the website I think is $700. Weatherby was cool enough to hook me up with a little bit of a discount, so I did pay for this action, but I did get a discount code. And I'm always looking for budget stuff. I'm always looking to get new shooters into the sport, whether it's PRS or NRL, or getting people into good hunting rifles, whatever the case may be. So I'm not afraid to buy something that's down there on the it's below the buy once cry once price point, right? I will say overall, this action is good for what the price is. You get what you pay for, right? It's a $700 action. I will say that the Aero Solus is a little bit nicer, but the Aero Solus is way heavier. Even their lightweight action, which isn't even available on the website right now, I think it's 30, I weighed one, it's like 31 ounces. This is 26.4 ounces. So this is getting down there in the territory of some of the quote lightweight actions. So I bought this so I could build a NRL Hunter light rifle. And I wasn't about to use a Solus just because I think a 3-lug on a light rifle is maybe not the best idea. For those of you guys that don't know, that aren't familiar with 3-lug actions, this is a 2-lug. But 3 lugs, basically, here's the cocking point on the rifle. You can kind of see that ramp right there by the bolt handle. That's how far your cocking piece, which is right here, has to travel in order to cock the firing pin, right? On a 3-lug, because you don't have as much travel when you go to close the bolt, it has to go up a steeper ramp. So you get a heavier bolt lift on a 3-lug action. Now there's some really nice 3-lug actions out there. The bolt lift isn't that bad. I think Curtis has one that has a roller bearing on the contact point right there to try to reduce the friction. But between that and the Solus being heavier, I felt like this Weatherby 307 action was a good choice. Out of the box, the first thing that I noticed was camming points on the inside of the action. I don't know if you guys can see you can kind of see the bolt and there we go. You see the bolt and you can see the lug abatements right there. There's a camming point, there's a ramp it's got to get up on there, right? And when you go to close this, it's got some downward force that's required. Now, I worked this action a lot to try to break that in, which is why you can see my action doesn't exactly look new anymore, even though I got it yesterday, because I spent a lot of time playing with this. I probably cycled it 2,000 times just, to get it broke in and lubricate it, clean it, cycle it a bunch, lubricate it, clean it, cycle it a bunch to get, the metal points to wear down. It was pretty clicky. And I was like, I don't know about this because, most people aren't going to notice. But when you're on your scope, getting ready to shoot a target, let's say PRS or NRL, most seasoned shooters and most people that have shot at a venue or with a match director that doesn't allow what's called sky loading, which is basically closing your bolt and then getting down and looking. When you close your bolt, your reticle moves around a lot, right? And so what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to get on target and close your bolt and stay on target and bring your hand back to the trigger and then shoot and then open your bolt and move to your next position, get on target, close the bolt, and fire. When you've got an action that's got some force to close, it's going to bounce around a lot more. Now, if your rifle weighs 20 pounds, like some PRS rifles do, that amount of movement is negligible. But if you're building a 12-pound rifle, which is the upper weight limit for NRL Hunter for open light, you've got about half the weight. So, you've got a rifle that's closer to like a hunting rifle. And that is one of the disadvantages of shooting light, is obviously a lighter rifle is more difficult to manage, which is why it's its own separate class. But to the contrary of that point, the cycling of the bolt, I guess you would call it, the feeding mechanism, is extremely smooth. I mean, it's like Defiance smooth. It is custom action, like glass, like snot on glass. So the machining on this action is pretty good. I think the camming thing was just like kind of like I don't want to say it's a quality issue. It's more like a design issue. And it's really not an issue at all. I'm just being picky. So, don't be afraid to go out and buy one of these actions if you're looking for a budget action. But just know, don't expect, like I have an Impact, don't expect an Impact. The Impact action is the smoothest opening and closing action I've ever felt in my entire life. So let's go over some of the features on this real quick. One of the things I think is really cool about this is the bolt handle is actually removable. So you push down and the bolt handle just pulls out like that. And that's actually how you get the cocking piece out of there. So this is, a piece of forged steel. I don't know what kind it is that has been nitrated, and then it's, cut into, the shape. The bolt handle and actually the cocking piece, maybe you can see it, there's a seam on the cocking piece. The cocking piece is actually metal injection molded. And I know a lot of people that hate on metal injection molded stuff, and there are some reasons. Metal injection molding, for those of you guys that don't know, is basically they take a powdered metal and squeeze it really, really, really tight under a lot of heat and a lot of pressure to where it forms a solid piece, right? It's like how like carbide inserts and like carbide tools and stuff are made. So it can make a good part, but one of the problems is it can get air pockets and stuff like that in there, and if you get a void in there, it can create a weak point and it can break. And so it's something you don't run into usually with billet parts. I mean, you can still get a void in a billet and it can still break, but metal injection molding, it seems to happen a little bit more often. So when I ordered this, I actually asked Weatherby, I said, will you guys send me another bolt handle? And the rep that I was talking to, he said, yeah. And I said, because I'm concerned about, this breaking during a match. Now, by comparison, Remington 700s, like factory Remington 700s, are notorious for the bolt handles breaking because they're silver soldered on. So this isn't exactly something that is uncommon or is inherent to this action. Like, bolt handles do break sometimes. I've seen bolt handles on Savages break. I've seen 700 handles break. Obviously, you get a higher quality action where the bolt is entirely one piece and stuff like that. The bolt handle, you're probably never going to break one of those even if you tried. But again, you're paying twice as much for, the action sometimes. You got an external bolt release here, so you don't need a bolt release on your trigger. It takes Remington 700 triggers. I got a Trigger Tech primary on here. You'd actually be surprised how low these primaries can adjust. I think I have this one set to 18 ounces right now. It says it only goes down to 1.5 pounds. It actually goes down a little bit lower than that. One of my minor gripes about a design choice they made, which is easily fixable, is here's the recoil lug right here. It's kind of thin. I usually like a 250 thousandths recoil lug, 1/4 inch. This is a .188, which is 3/16, I think. It looks like it's well made. It's ground on both sides, all that good stuff. It's got a hole in it for a pin, but Weatherby used a roll pin on the action instead of like a dowel pin, which is what you usually see with pinned actions. And for those of you guys that are unaware, the pin has two purposes. One, it keeps your recoil lug in place when you go to take your barrel off and on. So if you want to do prefits or something like that on here, which I do know one company is making prefits, actually BSF, because they make the barrels for the Weatherby rifles that they sell holds your recoil lug in place. So that way when you screw the barrel on, the recoil lug doesn't rotate and it's not clocked with the action. And then you go to put it in your stock and it hits the bottom of your recoil lug pocket. The other thing is it keeps the recoil lug from being able to basically shift in between the barrel and the action, under recoil, which can cause point of impact shift, and then your zero is off, and then, in the middle of a match, you're like, oh, why is my dope off? So I'm going to replace this with a dowel pin, just because dowel pins are usually spec'd out to be press fit, so you got to tap them on there, and so there's not, it's a stronger piece of metal, and it's less likely to have any play in it. That's pretty much all you get in the box. You get your recoil lug, you get your bolt, you get your action. It doesn't come with a scope mount. It does take Stiller scope mounts, and I think there's a Savage round rear. So like most of the AccuTrigger models have the round rear instead of the flat rear on the back. I bought one and it didn't fit, but I have a feeling that somebody sent me the wrong one. So, because when I looked at it, I was like, this is way too long. It doesn't look like it would fit a short action at all. So Stillers will definitely fit. In fact, some interesting things. I actually have a Stiller right here. So this is a Stiller Predator that I chambered in 260. It's one of my hunting rifles. The bolt, I won't do it because I don't like doing that because I think the bolt should be fit to the rifle. But believe me when I say the bolt from the 307 actually fits in the Stiller Predator. Which brings me to another interesting point. Pacific Tool & Gauge is actually taking these 307 actions, blueprinting them, and putting a Stiller bolt in them. And they're actually cheaper than you can get them for on Weatherby's website, which somebody's going to figure that one out eventually and change the price. So go out and order one before they figure that one out. It's like $500, which is cheaper than even I got with the discount. Now the catch is the lead times of Pacific Tool & Gauge are notoriously long. So you're probably going to wait 3 or 4 months. Could be sooner for this action, right? But if you want a really good deal on an action that's trued and blueprinted and doesn't have the issues like I was saying where when you go to close it, that camming force is kind of high, that might be a good option. I haven't held one yet. I'm planning to order one, and we're going to see, just how good it is or if it's better at all. But I thought that was kind of interesting that they kind of are using some Stiller, scope mount, and the bolt is pretty much the same. Like I said, I couldn't get the Stiller bolt into the 307 action. It might go if I were to force it. I just didn't want to. One of the only other reviews on YouTube about this action that I found, the guy complained that this doesn't take Remington 700 scope mounts, and you would think with it being a Remington 700 clone that it should take a 700 scope mount, but I think that the 700 scope mounts are actually inferior. I think that design was inferior because it is a lot easier to get these two surfaces parallel when the entire body of the action is round. When you've got a surface here that's round and you've got a surface here that's it's flatter, it's got a radius to it still, but that's a lot harder in the machining world to get those two surfaces to be completely parallel, which is why it's a pretty common thing when you put a scope mount on a Remington 700, you screw one end down and then you look at the other end to see if there's a gap or if it's bowing the scope mount at all. You're less likely to have that issue when the entire action body is one round piece of metal. So I think that pretty much covers everything. Like I said, overall, my impressions of the action are good. Overall, if you're looking for a Remington 700 clone action and you're on a budget, check out the Weatherby Model 307. All right, catch you guys later.